So in one way, it's easy, but in other words, it's difficult also. Now the point arises that why Krishna is talking about Gyan Yoga. I mean, he has talked about Karam Yoga. Okay, you are attached with your duty. You want to do certain type of profession. For example, Arjuna is a warrior. He wanted to fight. Okay, no problem. You fight for Krishna. That is Karam Yoga. Do your karma for Krishna. If you are attached to your duty, no problem. Do your duty, but for Krishna. Similarly, if you are very simple-hearted, you can directly worship Krishna. You have no other attachment. Perfect. Then you adopt Bhakti Yoga. But some people might not be, even though they are practicing Bhakti Yoga, or even worshipping Krishna through Karam Yoga, they might get also bewildered sometimes. Bewildered in the sense, okay, let me worship Krishna, which means let me chant my rounds, take association of devotees and everything, and let me do little bit sense enjoyment also. So so before coming into Krishna consciousness, before understanding Bhakti Yoga, before understanding Bhagavad Gita, he was only in one boat. He was driving only one car, and that is what material enjoyment. But now he wants to drive two cars at the same time, material enjoyment and spiritual enjoyment also. When I say spiritual enjoyment, means spiritual practice that we do for the enjoyment of Krishna. So he says, okay, earlier I was alone who was enjoying. Now I have understood Krishna is supreme. Let me also enjoy, Krishna also enjoy. I will do Krishna worship for his enjoyment, and I will continue my sense enjoyment also. For that perspective, for that reason, Krishna says, okay, now I need to give Gyan Yoga also. So I will tell what is nature, what is soul, what is knowledge, who is the knower, everything in detail, so that my devotee, who if slightly have inclination towards sense enjoyment, he will understand that this is simply waste of time that he will be doing here. So that he becomes more fixed up in Krishna consciousness, right? And when we will read Bhagavad Gita, or for example, from today's class, I will try my best to explain in best possible way I can. But believe me, even if we don't understand the message of Bhagavad Gita, it has its potency. For example, one time, one guru asked his disciple to take this basket. As you see in this picture, it has a hole at the bottom. So he says, take this basket and bring some water. I mean, fill this basket up and bring that to me. Then the disciple took that basket, filled it up, and came back. But there was no water. Why? Because it was leaking from bottom. So disciple said, my dear spiritual master, what is this? There is a hole at the bottom. So spiritual master said, oh, no problem. You try one more time. So the disciple went back again. He filled the bucket up and came back running a little faster this time. But no matter how fast he was running, again the bucket got vacant and there is nothing in there. So he again said, my dear Guru Maharaj, what is this? There is a hole at the bottom. There is nothing. Why you are asking me to do it? So Guru smiled and he said, I was doing this so the bucket gets cleaned. So similarly, when we hear the message of Bhagavad Gita from one ear, and even though it is going out from another ear, we don't understand anything, it still purifies our heart, which means we become more closer to Krishna. So don't worry if the message is not going into the heart, but the cleansing of the heart is still happening, which is the ultimate goal of understanding the Bhagavad Gita. So let's get started. This chapter 13, like I said, it's a little technical. So please pay attention to it. And if you don't understand anything at any point of time, please feel free to interrupt and ask. You are most welcome. It's not an easy chapter, I would again say. So that's fine if you interrupt and ask questions in between. Okay, so this chapter 13 actually has in total 35 texts. 1 minute, let me take my pen. Yeah, so it has total 35 texts. It's a big chapter and it has been divided into 5 parts. Now in first 7 texts, you will see that Arjuna is asking some questions. He start understanding jnana. He start taking jnana and what is actually knowledge, you know. So we'll see what Arjuna is asking from Krishna. And then we'll see in the next portion what is knowledge and how to gain that knowledge. You and me might be saying that I gained this physics knowledge, chemistry knowledge, biology knowledge, but is it actually knowledge in Krishna's point of view? That we will understand. And then what is soul and super soul? Krishna will explain the concept of soul, super soul, and then we can discuss Bhagavan also, you know, Paramatma and Bhagavan, what is the difference? And then enjoyer. Who is the enjoyer? Are we the enjoyer? Krishna is the enjoyer. And if Krishna is the enjoyer, then why we are trying to enjoy in this material world? You know, that we will understand in this chapter. And then Jnana Chakshu. See, Jnana Chakshu means one who has understood the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, then his vision to look at different things changes. For example, a meat eater, when he looks at different bodies, for him, he looks at, okay, cow flesh is very tasty, or pig flesh is very, like that. His vision is what? His vision is of meat. He wants to eat meat. So everybody he look at, he wants to eat meat. He wants to drive meat out of that body. Similarly, if a person is lusty, so every object in the material world he looks at from the lusty perspective. How can I enjoy that object? Now, the reader of Bhagavad Gita, who has this Jnana Chakshu, how he looks at different things in this world, everybody, how his vision gets changed. That's called Jnana Chakshu. His Chakshu is not filled with sense gratification, is not filled with lust or anger or other desires, contaminated desires, but his Chakshus are filled with Jnana, you know. So then how purified his vision becomes, that we will see in the last section of this chapter. So let's get started. Let's see what Arjuna is asking. So here is the first 2 shlokas. First one is what Arjuna is asking, and then immediately Krishna replies. So he says, Arjuna uvacha prakartim purusham cheva kshetram kshetragyameva cha etad veditum ichchami jnanam geyam cha keshava. So you see, in this, Arjuna is asking about Prakriti, Purush, so these 2 objects, and then Kshetram, Kshetragya, 2 more, and then Jnanam and Geyam, 2 more. So total how many? 6. Prakritim Purusham, Kshetram, Kshetragya, Jnanam, Geyam. Like that, it is a combination. Prakritim Purusham, 1 combination. Kshetram, Kshetragya, 1 combination. Jnanam, Geyam, another combination. 3 combinations. In each combination, there are 2 pairs. There is 1 pair, 2 objects. So immediately Krishna replies, and Krishna says, Idam shariram konteya kshetramitya vidhiyate etadvyaveti tam rahu kshetragya iti tadvidha. Krishna says, Idam shariram konte. Konte means Arjuna. Hey konte. Idam shariram kshetram. This sharir is kshetram. This body, this is kshetram. And etadyo veti tam prahu kshetragya. Veti tam prahu means who knows this body, he is kshetragya. Iti tadvidi. So let's see the translation. Arjuna says, so first Arjuna.
Can you please repeat this one?
Sure.
Shri Bhagwan watch.
Okay. So let's see the translation first, and then I will go to the repetition. So Arjuna said, "Oh my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti," which means, so we saw Prakriti, right? That's one question that Arjuna is asking. Prakriti. Purusha, okay, enjoyer. See, Purush Purush here doesn't mean male. Purush means enjoyer. Okay, Purush means every living entity in this material world. Okay. And then he says, and the field and knower of the field. So Kshetram and Kshetragya. And of knowledge and object of knowledge. Okay. Fine. So Krishna, so don't worry what Arjuna is asking, okay? I mean, because he's asking too many questions in 2 lines, right? So let's focus on what Krishna is replying. Krishna is not replying all of the 6 questions at the same time. So let's focus on what Krishna is replying. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. idam shariram means this body. Okay. And then he says kshetram. So you see here in the translation, we have this body, O son of Kunti, is called field. Is called field. And the one who knows this body is called knower of the field. So I will come to this point. Let's see this pair, okay, as you see on my screen. So it's saying kshetram idam shariram, kshetram mein veduta prabhu. This is matter. Then jnanam geyam means knowledge. So he's talking about knowledge here. And then prakriti purusham, he's talking about spirit here. So three parts: matter, knowledge, and spirit. Now, so think it this way. As you see on my screen, right? We have soul. We understood this concept in chapter 2 also. So we have soul, and when the soul is fallen into this material world, you know, this is a spiritual world. And then when soul comes into this material world, it is given two coverings. So we have soul, then one covering, and then two covering. Can someone tell me what is the inner covering and what is the outer covering? What is the name of this?
Outer covering is body, inner covering is mind in intelligence.
Okay, someone else wants to try your pillows. Specific looking the name, that X body, Y body. What is the value of X and Y? So if I say X body.
Sthul Sharir, Sushma Sharir.
Okay, very good, very good. Thank you, Devesh Bro. So this is gross body, outer is gross, and inside is subtle body. Subtle body means mind, intelligence, false ego, and X body means gross body. So ears, eyes, the outer layer that we see, right? And then what is that inside? Inside is soul. Now you see, this soul inside the body knows about the outer body, doesn't it? For example, you have fever. I don't know if you have fever. You will have to tell me, sorry, Prabhu, I cannot come in the class today. Oh, what happened? I have fever actually. So I don't know. You know about your body. Correct, no? So this body, the outside, what we see around the soul is a kshetram, is kshetragya. Sorry, is this kshetra? This is field. This is the field, and who knows the field is kshetragya. Gya, you remember, gya means gyan. So who knows, who has gyan, knowledge of this kshetra is kshetragya, and who has knowledge? Soul. Is it clear so far? Any question? Okay. Yeah.
This body is Kshetra, and the one who knows it is the Kshetragya. Means the soul is the Kshetragya.
Correct. So Krishna is telling here, you see in this translation, this body is called field, which means this is field. And then who knows this field is one who knows this body is called knower of the field. Who is the knower of the field? Soul. Yes, Anand Prabhu, you have a question?
Prabhuji, I have a question. When you said soul has the memory, you said, right? Or say
No,
soul has some intelligence?
Soul is given. See, there are two things now. It becomes little technical now, but you can understand soul has its own intelligence also, but that intelligence is contaminated because of these two layers, outside layers, you know, this field.
So my
Understand
question
it
is,
this way. For example, there is a farmer, and he has a field. So farmer knows about this field, his field, na?
yeah, but farmer learned it. Say suppose I'm born in a farmer's family, it doesn't mean that I know the farming.
You
right?
have to learn, correct?
Yeah. So my question is, when the soul enters a material body,
yes, bro.
Does the soul come with a qualification, with some kind of a X amount of knowledge? Like, what I mean to say is that, subconsciously we are winking, we are blinking,
so
we are
don't
laughing, we
think
are
too much,
smiling, right?
I understood your point. See, for
Okay,
example, when we say, for example, I say I know about this body, it doesn't mean I know everything about related with biology of this body, what chemicals and everything. No, that much I don't know. But when I say I know about this body, which means I am attached to this body. To that extent, I know. Which means whatever is happening in my body, I know that. For example, I have to go to washroom, I know that. I am feeling bad, I know that. I'm feeling happy, I know that. All these types of reactions, transformations in the body, I know. But to deeper level, that we don't know. That only super soul know. We know we will come to know that concept now in the third shloka.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. So I think it should be clear, right? Krishna is talking about these two things. Okay. Kshetra, the field, and Kshetragya, who knows the field, knower of the field. Two things. So Kshetram means field, right? And then Kshetram means knower of the field. Okay. Now let's see next what Krishna says. So again we are talking about these two things here. And then Krishna says, Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetragyo jnanam yat jnanam matam mama. Krishna saying, in my opinion. So whose opinion matters? Krishna is so humble, he's saying, in my opinion, this is the thing. So whose opinion matters to us? No one else, right? But he's saying like, that is my opinion. So what is his opinion? He's saying, oh Skynon Bharat, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. You see the point? Soul, so we understood there is a soul, and we understood that there is a gross body and subtle body, right? Gross body means we have mind, intelligence, false ego, and then outside layer we understand, right? Eyes, ears, etc., right? So, and then there is soul. This dot, as I see you, this is soul. But Krishna is saying, no, chapi. The word chapi has been used. Chapi means me also. Kshetram chapi mam, me also. Vidhi, sarva kshetreshu bharata. I am also present in all bodies, which means Krishna is also there as a super soul. See the point? Here is a little addition. So soul knows about the body, fine, but then there is super soul also, which means super soul also knows about this body. Now, what is the difference in this? Difference is that you know about your body, how you are feeling, or what do you want to do, things like that, what is happening in your body, right? But you don't know my body, which means we have very localized knowledge. We know about each other's body, but super soul, the same super soul is in your heart, in my heart also. So he knows about your body also, he knows about my body also. So he has a global vision. I would say he has global awareness. We have local awareness, correct? Global awareness and local awareness. So Krishna is saying, understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, which means I also know about all bodies. And then Krishna is saying, it's this is important. He's saying to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. This is so amazing. Krishna is saying to know about soul and the outer layer, which means to know about knower and outer field, to know the field and to know the knower of the field. That is knowledge. So if let's say there is a farmer who is working in the field. Farmer knows everything about the field, but he doesn't know about himself, or he doesn't know about the king who has awarded him that field. Then what would you say? That knowledge is incomplete. The complete knowledge means the farmer should know that there is a king who awarded me this field, and this is me who is going to work on this field, and this is the way I have to work on this field. So that becomes complete knowledge. But you see in this world today, all the material knowledge, physics, chemistry, that math that we give, they are only around body. Big universities are there, but the knowledge that is given in the universities to us, that is only centered about body. No university in the world is talking about soul or super soul. No one. Everybody is talking about body, which is field. Everybody is talking about field. How can we enjoy using this field? That's all. Which means, and as per Krishna, he's saying, Kshetra Kshetragya or Jnanam, saying this is the Gyan, to know about Kshetra and Kshetragya, to know about field and to know about knower of the field, which means to know about the body, to know about the soul, super soul, right? What is Kshetra? body, Kshetragya, soul and super soul. To know about them, that is knowledge, which means we have been gaining only half knowledge so far in our life through different universities. So let's move on. Now further, Krishna says, Yat Chetram Yat Yatak Yad Vikari Yatasya Yat Sachayo Yat Prabhavascha Tat Samasena Meshru. Meshru means hear from me. Shruno means hear, me means from me. Now Krishna says, please hear my brief description of this field of activity, which means body, and how it is constituted, what changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what its influences are. So Krishna is going to talk about everything. So Krishna is actually going to talk about Kshetra and Kshetragya in little more detail. What is Kshetra? Which means field of activity. Like you see in this picture, this farmer is working in the field, right? So this field becomes field of activity for this farmer. And who is this farmer? This farmer is actually the Kshetragya or knower of the field. So remember this, field is one and knower are two. Can someone tell me the two knowers that we are talking about here?
One is us and another one is Krishna.
Krishna or super soul from body
Yeah.
perspective. Perfect. Thank you, Shweta Mataji. So understood point, right? So in this example, so farmer and the king will give a name in this field, right? So Krishna is going to talk about that. Now Krishna says, Rishi bhir bahudakitam chando bhir prathak brahma sutra padescheva hetu bhir vinishchite. Krishna says that knowledge of field of activities and of the knower of the activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning and to cause and effect. So Krishna, before explaining them, is saying that this knowledge that I'm going to give you is also available in various other literature as well. So instead of understanding so many literature, Krishna is going to give this knowledge now. We can directly stick to Bhagavad Gita. You see, all other literature also now, they, for example, Krishna says to Arjuna in second chapter, he says, Trigunya Vishya Veda Nistrigunya Bhava Arjuna Nirdwando Nitya Sattvasto Niryog Shema Atmavan. So he's saying Trigunya Vishya Veda. So he's saying Veda, which means all the Vedas. Trigunya means they are talking about three modes of material nature. Three modes of material nature are what? Mode of passion, mode of ignorance, and mode of goodness. So he's saying these Vedas are talking about these. So you see, Vedas are also talking about field of activities that Krishna also told in second chapter. And Vedas also talk about soul. So Krishna is saying this knowledge is also available in Vedas as well. And I'm going to also present you here. So he further says, so there are two shlokas here. He says, Mahabhutan ahankaro buddhir vyaktameva cha indriyani dashekam cha panch chendriya gochara ichha dvesha sukham dukham sangatsascha chetana dhriti eta chetam samasena savikar mudaritam. Now, this is little tricky, okay? So please pay attention to it. So we are not going to the translation. Let's directly go to the breakdown. Krishna is giving the breakdown of Kshetragya. Okay, Krishna. Because see, so Krishna is giving the breakdown of, he's giving the breakdown of field. This knower, he is still not touching knower. Knower, we understood, right? Soul and super soul. So he is starting with field first. And for the field, he's giving this 24 items list. So he's saying there are 5 knowledge senses: eyes, ears, nose, touch, and tongue and skin. See, why we are saying knowledge senses? Because from these 5 senses, we get to know what that item is. Eyes, when we look at some forms through our eyes, we get the knowledge. Okay, this is Taj Mahal, and this is cup of tea, this is nice building, like that. Ears, we get to know the music, we hear the music, right? So similarly, nose, we smell, tongue, we taste, skin, we touch. So we get some knowledge by these senses, knowledge senses. Then comes 5 objects of senses: form, sound, smell, taste, touch. You see, eye is form, ear sound, nose smell, tongue taste, skin and touch, like that. So these are also 5 more senses. Then come 5 working senses. Now some people might say that if we have ears, then sound will definitely, we will be able to hear. No, there's many people, they have eyes but they can't see, they have ears but they can't hear. So we should have this sense also separately, and for these senses to act properly. This is a combination that works in our body, right? And then once we know through these knowledge senses and objects of senses, then we work accordingly. So for example, eyes, we look at some beautiful form, we are looking at a picture of Taj Mahal, then we develop a desire to go and watch, have sight of Taj Mahal, then we use our legs, our hands and everything to move to go to Agra and watch it, you know. So similarly, these are knowledge acquiring senses, and these are the objects of the senses, and these are working senses that we use when we get the knowledge through these senses. So these works together. And then comes 5 great elements: Mahabhut, earth, water, fire, air and ether. This combination actually creates this universe, entire universe, our bodies also. And then comes part subtle body: mind, false ego, intelligence and unmanifested stage of 3 modes of nature. Actually 3 modes of material nature works on the direction of Supreme Lord. So based on our desire, we will discuss this point, but based on our desire, Supreme Lord sanctions and he engages the modes of material nature to help us fulfill our desire. So anyway, as you see, we have 5 plus 5, then 15, and then how many? 20, and then 4 elements here. So total 24 elements are there. So Krishna is saying the 5 great elements: false ego, intelligence, unmanifested, 10 senses, and this. And this is desire, hatred, happiness, distress, aggregate, life systems, confusion. All 3 are considered in summary field of activities and interactions. See, why is saying interactions? So let's see from this diagram. So we understood that there is soul. So this yellow line, as you see, consider this as soul. The outer dotted line, this is subtle body, and the bold line outside is the gross body made of fire, air, ether, and then this is subtle body. Then comes the soul part. So this is Kshetra. Whatever we discussed so far, this is body, 24 elements, right? You see on my screen, these are 24 elements. This is all Kshetra. This is Kshetra. This is field of activities, nothing else. See, in the field, if farmer is not there, then there is nothing is going to happen on that field. I mean, no tree will come, no tree will come out from the ground and give us nice fruits. There should be someone who is doing activities on that field for that field to come out, right? So this body is actually dead matter, but the soul with the consciousness comes into this, then it becomes conscious, then it alive. As soon as soul goes out, we all know, right? It's a dead matter. So this Kshetra works with the desire of soul. Whatever soul desires, based on that, the soul engages this body. So this body Kshetra, the knower of the body Kshetram. So you can say mini Kshetragyam or main Kshetragyam. Mini means soul, and main means super soul. Now, what is the interaction? What do we mean by interaction of Kshetra and Kshetragyam? So let's say 2 people are interacting with each other. What happens? Either they are very happy. Oh, it was nice meeting you. So there is some result is coming now with that interaction, or they interact or they keep fighting. They start fighting. So that is another interaction they start having. Similarly, when this Kshetragya, knower, this Kshetragya comes into Kshetra, like a farmer comes into Kshetra in the field, what happens? Some trees, plants, they start coming up. Similarly, when soul enters, this Kshetragya enters into Kshetra, the soul enters into the body, then what comes out? This comes out. What is this? Happiness, distress, that keeps coming out. Which means if we are having happiness and distress, that is the result of us being in the body. That's all. This is an important point. Which means if we want to be eternally happy, we have to come out of the body, then only we can be eternal. As far as we are in the body, we will keep facing this. And not, when I say we, it means all the living entities in the material world. They are happy, they are in distress condition. Why? Because of the interactions of body and knower of the field. So we cannot blame anyone. I am not happy because of him or her, because of that leader, he is not doing his. No, why we are complaining? We are not happy because we are in this body. So all our endeavor should be to come out of this body. Otherwise, we will always be in this duality, happiness, distress. So field of activities. So we saw one example of a farmer. See, similarly, let's say there is a barber. For a barber, his shop becomes field of activities. For him, his everything is his shop. Every day he will open the shop, he will work 12 hours, 14 hours, whatever time he has here. Children, they are playing in the playground. They can play for hours. I know my 2.5-year daughter, I take her in a park nearby and she can spend hours and hours there. Problem begins when I ask her to come out of the park. Then she starts crying. Similarly, when we come into this body, this body becomes our field of activities. We do different activities on this field. This is our field. And what is the problem? The problem becomes when you ask anyone that you are not the body, you are the soul, come out of the body. I mean, work to come out of the body. Like my daughter, I was saying, if I ask her to come out of the park, she will start crying. Why? Because she wants to enjoy in that field of activity. Similarly, when we are placed into this body, we want to enjoy with this body. Many people don't even hear the message of Bhagavad Gita because they want to just keep enjoying in this body. Similarly, these professionals working 18 hours, 14 hours, for them, this office is their field of activity. They are completely engaged into doing this. Or this auto mechanic, for him, the shop is the field of activity. Similarly, as you see in this picture, this body is the field of activity. And how soul is trying to enjoy in this? Through nose, eyes, tongue, ears, touch, or mind. So soul says, no, let me enjoy in this body. What is soul? Kshetragya. What is the body? Kshetra. Field and knower of the field. Any questions so far?
Prabhuji?
Yeah.
You said like mind, intelligence and false ego is in subtle body, right? So
Yeah.
when the soul leaves the body, it will be carrying those things?
Yes, subtle it carries, but it carries until it gets the next body in the material world. But when it goes back to Godhead, then subtle body also gets dropped off here.
So when suppose we go back to the Krishna,
back to Godhead.
Golokam. Yeah. So
Mhm.
what is the status of a soul? Like we do have a gross body or subtle body along with that?
No, it gets a spiritual body. It gets a spiritual body. Soul gets a spiritual body, which is Satchid Ananda, which means there is no miseries in that body because that's not destroyable body. Understood the point?
Yeah. So that means intelligence is all like is a false ego, something like that.
Correct. That's the point which I was trying to explain, Anandru, also. See, intelligence is also two types: spiritual intelligence and material intelligence. So you see, this CEO of a company, Google, Microsoft, they have developed material intelligence. So they are on that position. But they have spiritual intelligence also. These people have spiritual intelligence also, actually. All of us have spiritual intelligence also that comes with the soul. But because of the material intelligence that covered up, that agyan avratam jnanam, We discussed that in the last class. So this material intelligence covers the spiritual intelligence. Now it becomes our choice as part of our free will, which we want to use, spiritual intelligence or we want to use material intelligence. Someone says, no, I want to use spiritual intelligence because I am in this kshetra, so I want to enjoy. Oh, you want to enjoy this matter? Yes, I want to enjoy this matter. Okay, you can use material intelligence and you can try to enjoy, no problem. But the reader of the Bhagavad Gita will say, no boss, I have understood. I am soul. What is the point of dealing with matter? Then he says, I will use my spiritual intelligence. Then he starts using spiritual intelligence. And when he starts using spiritual intelligence, then he starts using matter also because he is in the matter. He cannot say, I am going out of the matter. He starts using matter for spiritual purpose only. So this matter also becomes spiritualized. That is why some devotee, like Dhruv Maharaj, they go back to Godhead from this body also. When Mrityu Devi came and then Mrityu Devi says, Dhruv Maharaj, please leave this body. I'm here to take it up. Dhruv Maharaj says, okay, take it. No, you are a Vaishnava. No, I can't touch it. Please leave your body. He said, no. He doesn't care. From this body itself, he steps onto the Vaikuntha planet and goes back to Godhead. Is it heavy, Shweta Madam?
Yes, I got it. And Prabhuji, like in our mind, most of the time when we think of something to do something, there will be always duality. So it will say no, do it, don't do it. This is wrong, this is right, right? So this duality is knowledge of our soul, or Supreme Lord is guiding us, like do it or not, or something like that.
Actually, you see the shloka that what Arjuna was telling. Karpanyadosha upahata subhava prichhami tvam dharma sammudha cheta. He's saying, I'm confused about my duty. I don't know what to do. So he was also getting into duality. He said, if I kill them, they are my own relatives. As a householder, I'm supposed to protect them. But as a warrior, I'm supposed to also kill the demons. I'm confused about my duty, what to do, what not to do. So what I'm doing, Shishyastem Sadi Mantam Kripan, I'm surrendering unto you. So you see, in this material world, we will always get into these situations. Few years back, I was into dilemma. I got into some problem. What should I do? Should I go back to India or should I stay back here? I was like, no, at one hand I have to do this, other hand I have to do this, what to do, what not to do. Then what we have to do? Just take shelter of Krishna. That's it. Holy name, keep chanting. Krishna will show you some path. Follow that. Don't worry about all these things. These things will keep coming.
Your voice is not coming properly.
Who is it?
Your voice is not coming properly, Prabhuji.
Who is it? Is that true, Shweta Mataji?
I can hear.
I think there is no signal.
Mataji's voice is clear, but yours is not clear, Prabhuji.
I can hear too.
Okay, my bad in that case.
One last question, Prabhuji. Like when exactly like soul enters the body?
Sorry, was it?
Like soul, no, sir, Prabhuji, soul. When does soul enter the body? Like in mother's womb, like as soon as birth it will enter, or when it is in womb?
As soon as birth will happen. I have a very nice video. I will share that with all of you. So this video shows how sperm enters into the mother's womb, and when sperm interact with
Sir, Prabhuji, your voice is echoing.
what do I do? Let me connect to mobile then. Since there is Prabhu right now. Let me quickly connect to mobile. Give me 1 minute. Is it good for others while I'm connecting? Okay, I got it. Is it okay now? I think it should be okay now.
Yes.
It's clear. It's clear. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for the disturbance created today. Yeah. So Mataji, your question is when the soul entered into the body.
Yeah, whether when it is in womb or in
Mhm.
certain month or as soon as the birth happen.
No, immediately when sperm gets into the mother's womb, now after
Huh.
4th or 5th day, soul will enter into
Yeah.
the body.
Okay.
Immediate. You can consider it as immediately.
Hmm.
Immediately. That is
Okay.
why, recently I was hearing a debate. This preacher was saying that abortion is very bad,
Yeah.
and it's very
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. Based
So
on that only I asked Prabhuji. That.
no, that's a very nice question, Mataji. In fact, this one lady started arguing with this preacher that
Hmm.
how can we? This is my body, my property. I can go for abortion. What is the problem? Then this preacher said, "Okay, can you kill a baby in 10 months? Let's say after the delivery, baby is 1 month old. Can you kill the baby? No, I cannot kill. No problem. Can you kill the baby when the baby is 1 week old? No, we cannot do that. Okay. Can you kill the baby when baby is 1 day old? No, definitely not. Okay. Can you kill the baby immediately after delivery? Definitely not. Then how can you kill the baby? The baby is 8 months, 6 months, or 5 month old in the mother's womb. Mother's womb. See, people think as soon as the baby comes out of the mother's womb, then only it appears in the world. No, it's already appeared in mother's womb. You cannot go for abortion. You are killing a living entity, isn't it? My spiritual master says that in this world, people are so unfortunate. These small living creatures in mother's womb, and living entities, small, small. You see, the person comes in the protection of mother. Okay, mother, please protect me. I'm coming in your womb. And then what we are doing, we are killing them also. So some souls, some people are so. It's the biggest sin actually. Thank you for asking that question, Shweta Mataji.
Thank you,
Okay,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, I have one question in that way. Since this matter has
Uh-huh.
been raised, I
Yeah.
have a question related to it. Actually, that was my guilt. That is my guilt also. I do not get a proper answer before some time. When I married, during the first pregnancy, we have to abort the first child. And that
No,
was a very
whatever we
tough
did,
decision
that's
to
fine.
take. That was a very tough. Because
Okay.
since it has been that matter has been discussed right now.
Yeah.
It was a medical requirement. Otherwise, the mother and the womb both will not be saved.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. See, the thing is,
will that be
sometimes,
counted as a sin in that case?
Yeah. I have to cover few more texts on this. But what I was saying is, we have been incurring since time immemorial in this world. See, we are guilty of something we did in this very life, but we don't know so many sinful activities we must have done in previous lives, so many that we even don't remember. But we have a hope. The good news is we have a hope. We should not feel guilty. The person, whoever feels guilty, immediately Paramatma in the heart gives him the knowledge. Oh, he is feeling guilty. Let him give him some knowledge how he can get out of this guilt and will not have to suffer. So with that good news, we know that we have taken the shelter of Lord's name. And while taking Lord's name, unlimited sins immediately washed away. Immediately. So with that hope, we can stop our sin immediately and take shelter of holy name. Holy name is promising it will not let us go into the deeper hellish planets. Anyway, so we discussed first part of this chapter. Discussions are always good, but we'll have to cover some more shlokas, so we'll go to that. So I'll take a pause whenever I will cover the sections. I'll take a pause and then you please feel free to interrupt and ask questions. So this in the first part, we are understanding that Arjuna is asking about Purusha, enjoyer, this body Kshetra, Kshetragya, knower of the body, and the Jnana, Jnanam, object of the body, and nature means Prakriti. So he's asking 6 questions in this. And then Krishna explained Jnanam. Kshetragya, sorry. Krishna has explained Kshetragya a little bit and Kshetra in more detail. Krishna is saying knowing about soul, super soul, and body is actually Jnanam, is actually knowledge. If we are only about knowing about body, it's an incomplete knowledge. And only knowing about soul and super soul, that is also not perfect. So we have to know completely. So we'll complete the intelligent question, the first part of this, and then comes another part, which is knowledge and how to gain it. This is actually it's like 4 shlokas, five shlokas, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 5 shlokas put together. That is knowledge. We are going to discuss. I'm not going to recite the shloka, it's a big one. Let's quickly get to the point of actually why I put it here, change of field of activities. See, why do I want a change of field? If you remember, right, we discussed that as soon as the soul enters into the body, happiness and distress starts coming, correct? Which means this field of activity is the reason for a person to feel distress, morose, or suffering, whatever type of suffering we have in this world. The reason is field of activity, which is kshetragya. Oh, sorry, kshetra. Field means kshetra. So it's like again, if we come back to the same example, the farmer is working in the field, but the field is giving trouble to the farmer. And the farmer is saying, I want another field because this field is not giving me any gain. I want another field. Similarly, when we come into this body and this body starts giving us trouble, then person says, I want another body. But the problem is, if he is asking material body, then it's a problem, because no matter what material body we will be given by Krishna, we will be always suffering distress, moreover, in this material body. So we want a spiritual body. Now the good news is, even while living in the material world, we can gain this body. That's a good news. We can gain this body. How? Let's see. You see, in this picture, Mirgari, this person, he used to take enjoyment in killing animals half. He will not kill them completely, like cut the throat and immediately kill. No, he will cut them half. And then when animals, when they will be lying on the ground crying in pain and for days and days and then die, then he will take enjoyment in that. He will feel enjoy when someone else is suffering. He will not kill them completely, but kill them in different parts so they don't immediately die. Then blood will start coming out of the body and animals will keep suffering, crying in pain, and he will take enjoyment in them. So you see, even though he was trying to take enjoyment in that activity, he was actually gaining a lot of papa karma, and he was destined to go to hell. So the field of activity, the body that he was using for, he was actually preparing that for suffering. But he took shelter of whom? Narad Muni. And Narad Muni said that for right, you have to kill all these, you'll have to go to hell. Then he says, yeah, but I have to do, I'm a householder, I have to kill those animals for meat. If I'll not kill them, how would I survive? I have a family. Narad Muni says, if you are just doing it for family, then your family is ready to take your sufferings. After you leave this body, you will go to hell. Another body will be given to you in hell, and then they will put you in a hot oil, and then you will keep crying there. Would they take some of your reactions? He said, definitely, I'm doing it for you. Go and ask them. He went there, and no one was ready to take those sufferings. He said, you are killing it, boss, you take it. He immediately came to Narad Muni, surrendered to him. And you see, Narad Muni asked him to start chanting. He started chanting. His heart became so purified that when Narad Muni came, he wanted to pay obeisances, but he did not fall on the ground immediately because there were ants passing from there. He said, if I will pay obeisances, this ant will be killed. He waited and then he fought. So there is a change of heart. which means all the material body that we have became spiritual. And when the body becomes spiritual by doing spiritual activities, then the person does not die. It might look low. What are you saying? Person does not die. Person does not die means normal person will die in pain, crying for life. But a devotee leaves this body as a garland, a flower garland leaves the body of elephant. You know, a neck. Let's say there is a garland in elephant neck, and it just fall on the floor. Similarly, this body falls from a devotee's soul. Devotee doesn't feel pain, just falls on this, falls on this, and the devotee leaves the body like that without any pain or suffering, feeling that he got elevated from this body. Now, Krishna is giving all these 20 elements about knowledge. Krishna is saying humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of self-gratification, absence of false ego, perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with the children, wife, home, and rest, evil-mindedness, pleasant and unpleasant events, control and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-relation. This is very important, accepting the spiritual and importance of self-relation, and philosophical search for absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge. And besides this, whatever there may be, that is ignorance. Which means if we are not humble, if we take the first quality, we are not humble, that means we are accepting ourselves as enjoyer. We want to enjoy separately from Krishna. See, there is a past time. One time, King Akbar asked in his assembly that I'm drawing this line. He drew one line on a paper, and he said, "Who can reduce the length of this line?" Then people said, "What is the big deal?" They start coming, and then someone start rubbing. Said, "No, you don't have to touch this line, but you have to just reduce its length." Then Birbal came, and he drew one more line lengthier than that one. He did not touch the line, just one more line, which was more lengthier than the line King Akbar drew. So, and then he said, "Okay, you're really very intelligent, and then you can go." So that means when we understand Bhagavad Gita, take association of devotees, and do menial services for Krishna, then we realize that actually Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He's supreme. What is my position? Who am I trying to be enjoying this world? I should be actually considering every living entity, my husband, children, society, people, my relatives, everybody, as the representative of Krishna trying to teach me. So if someone is giving me pain, I should be thinking that they are actually arrangements made by Krishna to purify my heart, so I become humble. I am very egoistic. And when we do that, that is knowledge. But if we are become angry or like that, it means we are in ignorance. We don't know about true self, or probably we have understood Bhagavad Gita, but we are not firmly convinced, or to the extent we are being angry, to that extent we are in a jnana, ignorance. Or to the extent we are becoming humble, to that extent we are convinced that we are nothing, simply a servant of Krishna. Okay, so there are so many elements. I would request all of you to please read them. See, tolerance is another great element. If we want to stay in our relationship, then this is the formula: forgiveness. If you want to stay in relationship, forgiveness. There is a saying, right? Do you want to make bridges? What is it? Do you want to make bridges in for yourself, or do you want to make big holes? The bridges means forgiving. There people are not perfect. They will make mistakes, right? So we have to be tolerant. So all these qualities, if we start developing, practicing, then we are actually be known as in knowledge. Otherwise, we are not. See, for example, all of you are studying and doing all this discussion, right? So means we understand this point. We understand the importance of self-realization, which is another symptom that we are in knowledge. Otherwise, so many people are running on the roads like part of the rat race. They are not trying to
get the self-realization knowledge, right? So they are really in ignorance. So all these are the items that Krishna is talking about, that these are actually real knowledge. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so Krishna talked about, Kshetra, the field, and then Krishna talked about Gyan, knowledge. Okay, now Krishna will talk about Geyam, who is the knower. So we covered this one. Now we will come to the knower of the field, Geyam, or who is actually the object of knowledge. Both are the same thing. See, the one who is setting the knowledge, he is the knower, and he is also the object of the knowledge also. He is to be known. So let's start this one. Yeah, says Geyam yatata pravakshami yaj gyatvam anadi mat param brahma na sattan na suduchyate. Krishna says, I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. See, knowable means the one is to be known. Whatever we understand in this material world, there is no end. For example, you cannot say, I have become the expert of accountant, now I need not to know anything more. No, there's a research, or there's things keep happening. There's no end to that knowledge, that understanding. You know what I mean? Physics, chemistry, math, or this whatever, aerospace or whatever. The people keep reading. There's no. But the actual knowable, what is the symptom? What is actual knowable? Knowing which you will attain the taste of eternal. You will feel the bliss. That's what Krishna is saying. The Brahman, the spirit, beginless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause of effect of this material world. So whatever we are trying to understand in this material world, there is a cause and effect. But this knowable is beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So Geyam has been used here. Geyam means mandatorily knowledge. So many things we can know, that's fine. But Geyam means knowable, to be known, mandatory known. This is something which mandatory to be known. So as you see on this screen, right, as much more we know about sense objects, as less we feel we know about them, and result in hankering, frustration, and never-ending race, which means we want to know more. On the contrary, knowing about Paramatma satisfies us completely. Last class we were discussing about soul in this university program, and students were appreciating so much that okay, we are going beyond matter. So which means that we can immediately see the result also when we read Bhagavad Gita, understand all these concepts, so that oh my God, I am not this body, I am simply suffering out of our transformations of this body. So this is called Brahman, the taste of Brahman. And then Krishna says, Sarvate Panipadam Yat Sarvato Akshra Mukham Sarvata Shruti Malloke Sarvamagritta Tishtati. Everywhere are his hands, legs, his eyes, heads, faces. He has ears everywhere. In this way, super soul exists, pervading everything. This soul has to go into different bodies, but super soul is just appearing in different bodies. It doesn't look. It is not that your super soul in your body is different than the super soul in my body. But the soul, in a way, are different. They have localized understanding. But super soul is same in everybody's body. What to talk about body? In fact, in every atom also the same super soul. That in that perspective, it is said that it has hands, legs, everything everywhere. The sarvata pani padam tat, which means he has hands and legs everywhere. You know, in Jagannath Puri, when Jagannath ji come out on the road for yatra, then people just offer them food. So many people, lakhs of people, they will have food, and then they just raise their hand in air and then offer the food to Jagannath ji. And Jagannath will keep taking the food from everybody. He has hands everywhere and he has legs everywhere. You are sitting in your room, you just pay obeisances to Krishna. Even though Krishna is not there, he is accepting your humble obeisances. So he has legs, hands everywhere. Sarvato Aksheshro Mukha. He has mukh everywhere. Wherever you are, he can accept our prasadam. We pay obeisances. He can raise his hand and bless us. Sarvata Shruti Mataha. Shruti Mat. He has ears. He has ears everywhere. Whatever, so many people, even they don't believe in Krishna, but if they pray, then Krishna will hear and give them what they want. So this is showing all pervading nature of the supreme soul, super soul residing in everybody's hearts. It's a super soul, all pervading nature. Then Sarvendriya Gunabhasam Sarvendriya Vivarjitam Asaktam Sarvabhracheva Nirgunam Gudbhoktuchra. The super soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. See, when we say without senses, it means it doesn't have material senses. There is a difference. Material senses get exhausted with at a point, right? But super soul has spiritual senses. That means, which means it is not. It's always blissful. That's the point. Now he is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of material nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature also. Which means this is the from purport of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada says the Supreme Lord, although the source of all the senses of the living entities, does not have material senses like they have. They have means we, all living entities have. Although the individual souls have spiritual senses, like we were just discussing, right? That spiritual soul has, I mean, the living entity, the soul has spiritual intelligence also, we just discussed, no? So Prabhupada is telling about that the individual souls have spiritual senses, but in conditioned life, they are covered with material elements. Ajnanam mavritam jnanam, covered with material elements, and therefore the sense activities are exhibited through matter. That's what Krishna is. So this is called transcendental nature. Transcendental means beyond this world. Super soul does not have senses, means it's beyond the senses of this material world. Then comes the all concealing nature. Bahiratnascha bhutanam acharam charamev cha suksham matvat kudavigyayam durastham chantike chetat. The supreme truth exists outside and inside of all living entities, all living beings, moving and non-moving. Because he is subtle, he is beyond the power of material senses to see, to know, although far he is also near to. You see, Krishna is saying he is beyond, inside of all living beings and moving and non-moving. So all of us are moving, correct? And we understood we have soul and super soul. But you see, the matter which is not moving, for example, let's say a pencil box, a book, table, even Paramatma, super soul is there in atom also. Otherwise, we understood, right, in science, in 10th standard, that there's a gravitational force by which an object stays on ground, correct? Now, if there is a force, there must be someone who is possessing the force. Otherwise, what is the... If you say that Ashwini Kumar Das is very powerful, but who is Ashwini Kumar Das? Oh, he is nothing. Then what do you mean by Ashwini Kumar Das has lot of powers? There should be some conscious person, a powerful person has power, correct? A conscious person, there should be some living person, and then the qualities of that person comes up, right? So similarly, when we say gravitational force, there should be someone who is possessing that force. Who is possessing that force? That is super soul living in every atom. That's why it is said it is there in all living beings, moving, non-moving. So first is living beings, and then later in the shloka we will also see there's this nature that even this is not moving, living being, non-living also. There also Krishna is residing as a super soul, but there is no soul. Only Krishna is living as super soul. Again, it says avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam miva cha sthitam bhuta bhartra cha yajgeya grasishnu pravavishnu cha. Although the super soul appears to be divided among all beings, so like we were discussing, right? See, super soul is there on living beings, but he is never divided. It is not contradiction actually, but it means that it looks like divided, but in a way it has the same awareness of everything and everyone. It's like that. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devotes and develops all. Then comes Jyotishamapi Tajyotis Tamsa Parmuchyate Jnanam Geyam Jnanagamya Hirdi Sarvatra Vishtitam. See, Jyoti word, you see, is important here. You see on my screen, Jyoti means source of light. So if we want to see the material objects, then what is the Jyoti? The source of light, sun or moon. Because there are sun and moon, we are able to see the objects. That is Jyoti. So, for example, words. What is the Jyoti for words? Ears. If we have ears, we are able to understand we are able to hear the words. So words, Jyoti is ears. Similarly, summer and winter. If we feel summer and winter, it feels because of skin. So skin is Jyoti. Skin is Jyoti for different weather or perceptions about this word that we have. What is what? Similarly, form. If you want to say something, eyes, Jyoti. Taste, Jyoti is tongue. Smell, Jyoti is nose. So similarly, soul. Soul's Jyoti is intelligence. Intelligence is mind, and mind's Jyoti is sense object. So you see the sense object, eyes, ears, nose, tongue. They give impressions on mind, and mind is controlled by intelligence, and so is the intelligence, which means for the soul, this Jyoti is intelligence. And what is the Jyoti for soul? That is super soul, because super soul, Ansh is soul, right? Krishna is saying, Mama Vansha Jeev Loka Jeev Hota Sanatana. So this living entity is my Ansha. So super soul Ansha is soul. So if super soul is the main Jyoti, if we understand, then that's what we are hearing here. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. So ultimately, super soul is the light. He is beyond the darkness of matter, unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge. He is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. So Jnanam, Geyam, Jnanagamyam. He is the knowledge. He is the object of knowledge, and he is the Jnanagam. He is the goal of knowledge also. Everything ends on there. Then Krishna says, the last shloka of this portion. Iti chetram tatha jnanam geyam choktam samasata mad bhakta etad vigyaye mad bhava yopapadyate. Thus the field of activities means kshetra, kshetra. Knowledge means jnana, and knowable means soul, super soul, have been summarized, described by me. But who can understand this? Krishna is saying only my devotees. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. Which means to understand the science of Bhagavad Gita also, one should be devotee of Krishna. Here's the word used, Mad Bhakta. Krishna is saying, Mad Bhakta etad vigyaye. This Vijnana, this science, only my devotees can understand, and then they can attain to my nature, which means Satchit Ananda. They can come out of this material world, they will attain to my nature. Okay. So we covered the first three. We have how much time left? I don't know how much time left. 15 minutes left. But any questions so far? Okay.
Probably a small request, if it is acceptable, or with a bit,
Yes, please.
it is. Since this chapter seems to be a very tough one, so can you break this chapter into 2 classes? Otherwise, it might possible that it may go beyond that. This is my personal feeling.
Okay.
I will go follow with the class, with the rest of
Or we can do one thing. Let us complete this today, and then all of you can hear the recording. And then if required, then we can take it again. I just don't want to break the flow, but if required, after we will complete the 18th chapter, then we will take it. But don't worry, if you will not understand something in this doesn't mean that you will not understand 14, 15 chapter. They are not too much linked with each other. So these are separate things.
Oh, okay, Prabhuji. Okay.
Okay, Deshru. Thank you. Thanks for the feedback. Okay, so we are moving to the next part of this, enjoyer. I think this is easy. What we are going to touch now, this is easy. So you will understand the upcoming, these two portions. Prakatim purusham cheva vidyanadi ubhavapi vikarascha gunascheva vidhi prakritim sambhavan. So Krishna is talking about two things here, Prakritim and Purusham. See, what is Purusham? Purusham means enjoyer. And who is enjoying in this body? The soul. Soul is trying to enjoy in this body. So soul, Purusham, like we discussed, doesn't mean male. Even dogs is also Purusham. There is the same soul in everybody. Right? So that's Purusham. And what is Prakartim? Prakartim means enjoyed. For example, Sita, Lakshmi, Radharani, they are enjoyed by their Lord, Ram, Hari, Krishna. Who is enjoyer actually? The supreme enjoyer is Krishna. And who is Prakriti? Actually, all living entities are Prakriti, right? But there is a difference. What is the difference? If one is trying to enjoy in this material world, he is imitating, as you see what I'm writing, imitating enjoyer. Imitating means he is not the actually enjoyer. He is to be enjoyed. It is actually nature is Prakriti. But he is imitating to be the enjoyer. He is imitating God. Correct? He is imitating God. That's what we are understanding here. This portion we are understanding about enjoyer. So every soul is also Prakritim because the part and parcel of Krishna. Because of its nature to imitate Krishna, to imitate enjoyer, they are being called as Purusham here. But Supreme Purusham is Krishna only. Okay. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginless. Okay. Their transformations and modes of matter are product of material nature. Now, what do they mean by transformation? You see this picture. Transformations are like this, crying here, happiness here. Got something, very happy. Crying on the. Why this is happening? Because we have this mentality of proprietorship, controllership, or enjoyership. We want to enjoy. We want to control over people. I own this, I own that, proprietorship mentality. Because of that, we suffer in this material world. Once we understand that Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer of everything, so then what happens? Then we surrender to Krishna. Actually, Krishna is the proprietor, controller, and enjoyer and everything. But like we discussed, the living entity thinks, I am the enjoyer, I am Purusha. That's what transformations, Krishna is saying that the soul gets into the body and thinks that I have to enjoy. So there's a false identity that soul carries. कार्य कारण कृत्येव हेतु प्रकृति रुच्यते पुरुषा सुख दुःखानां भोक्तृत्वे हेतु रुच्यते. Krishna says nature is said to be the cause of material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. This language is a little difficult, I understand, but let's see an example. Purusha mentality is the cause of all times of pain and pleasure. Anyone has any question on this statement? Then I will come to the next part. The Purusha mentality is the cause of all times of pain and pleasure. This is not plain actually, it's a typo there, it's pain. Anyone has any question on this statement?
But does it mean that when we think that we are the enjoyer, we
Correct.
feel pain and pleasure out of it?
That is right. Because when we will feel we are the enjoyer, then we use the material senses, and material senses gives pain, pleasure, switches only. Sometimes pain, sometimes pleasure. But whoever is completely formed, convinced that I am not the enjoyer, Krishna is the enjoyer, then he engages into spiritual activities. This matter also, he engages in spiritual activities, and then he becomes supremely enjoyer, Satchidanand, then he comes on that platform. Okay. Now you see what is cause and effect we are talking about here. So first line, you see nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects. So you see from nature comes a tree, correct? And from tree you build a table or different other furniture items. So what are those items? Actually effect of what? Of tree. So tree is the cause of those different products. But who is the cause of tree? This nature is the cause of tree. So whatever material cause and effects we see in this world, nature is the cause of them. So that's the first line. That is the meaning of first line. Then it says, whereas the living entity is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyments in this world, which means nature is not the cause for them. Living entity is the cause. You understand this point? Which means Purusha mentality is the cause. Which means living entity himself is the cause of being suffering in this material world, to have problem. You see this, living entity is the cause. So what did living entity does? It does different karma. Why it does different karma? Because of enjoying in this material world. And what happens with the karma? Because of that pap punya reaction comes, and because of that reaction he suffers or enjoy in this material. That is the effect. Yes, Devesh Prabhu.
Prabhuji, my question is that you said that living entity is the reason for the suffering. So if a child who is so young in a too early age and does not have much money to feed himself properly, then how is he being the cause of his own suffering?
But he is crying in pain, right? Because he doesn't have money.
No, not in crying in pain. He does not know that there is something beyond that. But actually, we can see that the person is, if a person is not getting proper water to drink or food to eat, then it is a pain. It is a misery.
No, but that is the pain because he is in this body, no? In this material body.
Then how come the way, like if you go about this line, whereas the living entity is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyments in this world, so but how does it fits in the example which I'm giving to you, sir?
You see, this small child who doesn't have any knowledge, or any adult also who, mentally retarded people also there, they don't know actually what is knowledge, or they don't even know what to eat, what not to eat. They need someone else to take care of them. But the point here is, whatever they are demanding from out of their thirst, or being hungry or anything like that, it's coming from this material body only. So they are suffering from this body. So when they say living entity is the cause of various suffering, it means the living entity in this body is the cause. Because living entity is in this body, that becomes the cause of suffering in this material world. So why a person is getting this material body? Because of the Purusha mentality, that I want to enjoy separately from Lord. Okay, you take this body, and then it becomes the cause. This body becomes the cause of various sufferings and enjoyment in this world. So this line, the Purusha mentality, also is the reason for someone to acquire the body, and because someone has acquired the body, that becomes the cause of various sufferings and enjoyment in this world. Now he might not be knowing what is right and what is wrong, but because of this Purusha mentality, he is getting all the pain and pleasures in this world. Does that make sense so far, Devishpu?
If I can summarize of my learning out of it, that since the soul has thought for being a Purusha mentality and demanded up, and accordingly the body was given, and since the
Correct.
body has been given, there is a cause of suffering because of it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So this is the meaning here, the cause and effect. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Purusha prakrtistho hi bhungte prakrti jan gunan karanam gud sangosya sad yoni janmasu. The living entity in the material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with what material nature? With that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Okay, here is a catch now. Please pay attention to it. Living entity in material nature thus follows the way of life, enjoying the three modes of material nature. Which means the living entity is actually gets a push from material nature to do certain things. For example, someone has a fighting spirit, which means he is in a mode of passion. He just wants to fight with everybody and everyone. So in that fighting spirit, he sometimes becomes a big criminal also. Now, because of this criminal thing, he gets a lot of impious karma, impious reaction. He's unnecessarily killing so many people. So ultimately, he'll have to go to hell. Now the question comes: if material nature is making him do it, then what is his fault? Correct? He can say, "Boss, this is not my fault. Modes of material nature are coming from Krishna, and modes of material nature are working on me." The modes of nature means mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. They're working on for me. So if I'm sleeping 14 hours in a day, that's not my fault. That is mode of ignorance that is working on me, because of which I'm sleeping whole day. Why are you giving me the polar bear body in the next life? It's not my fault. No, but this is our fault only. Why? Let's understand this. Let's say there's a father. Let's say father gives 100 rupees to his son and says, "Son, you have this 100 rupee. Take care of you. Take care of yourself." And the son takes those 100 rupees and gives them to a servant. Says, "Okay, my servant, you take this 100 rupees and bring me a beer bottle." Servant brings the beer bottle to son. And father comes and he sees my son is drinking. What he will do? A slap, hard slap on his son's face, isn't it? He said, "I'm giving you this money." Now the son is saying, "Why are you slapping me? This is not my fault. This is the servant's fault. He gave me this beer bottle." Right? Then father will say, "No, because you desired. Because you desired, this servant worked under your direction." Correct? Similarly, this living entity, living entity desires and super soul in everybody's heart. He understands their desire and he orders the material nature. And material nature supplies whatever is required for the living entity. So there is a concept of desire and deserve. I can desire to buy a big palace, but if I don't have money, then what is the point? So it's like that. So even though material nature is working on a living entity, but living entity is still the cause of his suffering in this world. That is the point. That is the example we read in Bhagavatam. You see, inside of this picture, there is super soul, Krishna in 400 form, Shankh disc, Gada, Padam Pushpa, and everything. And here is soul. So you see, very minutely, you see this picture is little dark actually. So here is super soul. I am highlighting this, and here is 1 minute. Let me take another color to highlight this. This picture we have super soul, and then we have soul here. Now soul, so on a tree, 2 birds are sitting. One is super soul, and one is soul. Soul is busy enjoying the fruits of this tree, which means soul is busy using this body, enjoying it. And super soul is continuously watching the soul. When this soul will looks at me, will understand me, and I can give him eternal liberation, like that. This is a analogy given. So similarly, soul is there, super soul is there, and the coverings are there, subtle and gross. Super soul is continuously looking at the soul when it will look at me, and the soul keeps desiring. Super soul keeps supplying whatever soul desires based on his eligibility or whatever he deserves. But it doesn't mean that super soul is different and Lord Krishna as Lord Vishnu, he is different. No, they are both same. Lord Vishnu only pervades himself in every living entity is a super soul. Okay. Now let's look at the shloka. Updrishtanumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwara paramatmeti cha yukto dehe asmin purushanara. Yet in this body, there is another transcendental enjoyer. So who is this talking about here? Transcendental enjoyer in the body? Super soul. Who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as overseer, permitter, and who is known as super soul? Okay. Paramatmeti. या एवं वेत्ति पुरुषं प्रकृतिं च गुणे सह सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि न स भू अभिजायते. He says, one who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, living entity, and the interactions of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. Just by understanding this chapter 13, what is the benefit we will get? We will attain liberation. He will not take birth again, regardless of his present position. He might be a big rascal, but he will read this science, understand it, then he will not take birth again. Back home, back to Godhead. ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति केचिदात्मानमात्मना अन्य सांख्येन योगेन कर्म योगेन चापरे. Some perceive the super soul. Now Krishna is telling how different people perceive the super soul. Some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, dhyanenatmani. Others through the cultivation of knowledge, which is Gyan Yoga, and still others through working without fruitful results. So this is Karma Yoga. So you see Karma Yoga, working without fruitful results, that is Karma Yoga, and then comes Sankhya Yoga, Gyan Yoga, that is cultivation of knowledge, and then Dhyanenatma, so themselves through meditation. This meditation means Dhyanatma. So Krishna is telling that different people perceive this super soul differently. Some will meditate, some will understand it through knowledge, and some will do karma yoga, and then they will understand, okay, there is super soul in each of us. Anyatve, yes, there's true.
Prabhuji, which one is better in that case and easy to achieve?
That Krishna has already told na, in 12th chapter when Arjuna was asking what is best.
Bhakti Yogi is telling.
Yes, that is correct.
But here, but even these three does not tell us about Bhakti Yoga at all.
These three are different. See, Bhakti Yoga is a different ladder, and these yogas are different ladder.
Okay.
Different things. But through those other yogas also we can attain Krishna. That takes time. That's the only catch here. But devotees, if someone is practicing, let's say Gyan Yoga, but he knows Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is actually practicing Bhakti Yoga only. In Gyan Yoga, yogi is not very much clear about the concept of Bhagwan, Paramatma, Avyakt. He doesn't know much about that, but keep reading. Can also, if he'll understand this chapter, he will also come to know eventually. But if there is a devotee who is into scriptures, then he's actually Bhakti Yogi. We should not think he's a Gyan Yogi. He's actually Bhakti Yogi. So let me tell you quickly. Let's say this is a circle for Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga. And there is a circle of Gyan Yoga. Let's say. Now, why I'm putting this inside this Bhakti Yoga? Because someone on this stage might not be very much convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he is going into spiritual reading. Now, as his conviction gets increased, this circle gets bigger, and eventually he becomes a pure devotee, like that. Same circle. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji.
It's like that. So similarly, Karma Yoga. So there is a Bhakti Yoga. Someone is doing karma because he has some desire, but he knows Krishna is the Supreme Person. Now he increases his bhakti more and less work on fruitive results. Then bhakti more, lesser work on fruitive results. Bhakti more again, and then eventually pure devotee. He becomes a pure devotee. Same circle, like that. Clear, hai na? Okay. Go to this. अन्ये त्वेवं जानन्तः श्रुत्वान्ये भयोपासते ते अपि चातितरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणा. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. Krishna is talking about simple devotees. They don't understand philosophy and all, but they are chanting 16 rounds, 4 regulative principles, serving the Lord, Supreme Lord. They also go back to Godhead. Okay, we covered all these. Coming to the last part, Jnana Chakshu. How much time we left? Overall, whoever wants to drop, they can drop off. They can hear the recording, but I will take like 10-15 minutes more, not more than that. Okay, so covering the last part, Jnana Chakshu. So how a person becomes when he develops this Gyan Chakshu, when he develops all this knowledge that we discussed. यावत् संजायते किंचित सत्वम स्थावरं जगममम क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञ संयोगात विधि भरत ऋषभा. O chief of Bharats, know that whatever you see in existence, both the moving and non-moving, is only a combination of field of activities and knower of the field. So, for example, you see, right? So, this earth is moving. Who is making this earth move? If you think from science perspective, science says if anything is moving, there should be someone who is applying that force. Then who is applying that force? The big earth is moving. Similarly, in atom also, electrons are moving. There is a nucleus in there, and electrons are moving around it. Who is making them move? There should be someone. And that's the point Krishna is making here, that whatever you see in this world, through telescope or through microscope, whatever you see, that is the combination of field of activities and knower of the field. Which means there is a knower of the field here also, and there is a knower of the field in our body also. In our body, there are two knowers, Atma and Paramatma, soul and super soul, correct? And in these in the matter which is not conscious, there is only one knower. Who is that? Super soul, Paramatma. Okay. So non-moving objects, there is a gravity and invisible force. So is applying that force, that is super soul. So what happens when someone gets the Gyan Chakshu? Krishna says, Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtante parameshwaram vinashyat swe vinashyantam yaha pashyati sa pashyati. One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, who understand that neither the soul nor super soul within the distant body is ever destroyed, actually sees. You see, this Brahmana is looking at this elephant, there is a soul. Looking at this Brahman, there is a super soul. Cow, Gati, there is a super soul. Dog, there is a super soul. Chandal, there is a super soul. So he looks at everyone not as their body but as super soul, which means he becomes he does not get deviated or too much joyful after gaining or losing something. It does not get deviated from his spiritual path. Now, samam pashyan hi sarvata samavasthitum ishwaram nahinastvat manatmanam tato yati param gatim. He says, one who sees a super soul equally present everywhere in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. It means in our body, mind is the reason we degrade ourselves. Actually, mind, I quickly tell you, mind gets a lot of pressure from senses. He looks at something and then he immediately gets the impression of that. Hears something, immediately get the impression. Touch, immediately get the impression. With these impressions, mind gets a lot of pressure to do a lot of things because he wants to enjoy. Similarly, false ego keeps pressurizing the mind. I want to become wealthy. I want to get full strength. I will become renunciate. I want to become wealthy. Whatever. Minds get a lot of pressure from the senses, false ego, and everything. Now, someone can use the mind, and whatever impressions that we have on the mind, the soul can use the intelligence and decide what to do. But if the soul, instead of using the intelligence, use the mind, then mind becomes the reason for the soul to degrade. What is the meaning of degrade? We are in the better position, we'll go to the lower position, like animal body, more lower, small mosquito type bodies, more lower if you go hellish planets, like that. Degrading from the current position. So this human body is very rare and degrading from this. How? By mind. Because mind will ask the soul to do all degraded activities. Now soul has to make the decision. Do you want to use intelligence or mind? Soul says, no, I want to use the intelligence. I haven't read Bhagavad Gita. I cannot use the mind. Perfect. Then it means soul is focusing on what? Super soul, which is perfect. But if soul is not using the intelligence but mind, it means soul is trying to degrade itself. So anyway, the person who is Pandita, who has the knowledge of soul and super soul, he looks in each person super soul, and his only objective becomes what? To worship the super soul, Krishna. Another thing Krishna is telling, Prakarte vecha karmani kiryamana nisarvasha ya pashyanti yathatmanam kartaram sapashyati. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. If the soul, now question is, if the soul does nothing, then why karma is in soul's account? So we discussed this point, right? Soul still have a free will to decide what to do and what not to do. So that's why even though there are material nature working, but material nature are working because soul has a free will. So if soul's free will is desiring something bad, and then it is working on that behalf, and the material nature is working on that behalf, the desire of the soul, it means that material nature is just the instrument for the soul to satisfy his free will. So ultimately soul is the culprit. That's why the karma gets into the soul's account. So desire deserve concept we, and yes, Devesh, we will take your question in the last. I just want to quickly wrap this up. यदा भूता पृथक् भवामि कस्थम् अनुपश्यति तथा इव च विस्तारं ब्रह्म सम्पाद्यते तदा. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. These are pretty much clear now. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. So this point to be understood, right? Soul comes from the spiritual world. So it's eternal, it's transcendental, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, Arjuna, soul neither does anything nor is entangled. So soul is entangled in the body, but in the sense soul has a free will to go back to Godhead if that works in that way. So which means a Brahman, yeah. Yatha sarvagatam sokshamadaakasham nopalipyate sarvatra vasistito dehe yatatma nopalipyate. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. So sky is all pervading, but it's not mixing with cloud, different stars, and like that. Similarly, soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body only. Discussing that an example of an elephant. So you can see that a garland in the neck of elephant is associated with the elephant, but as soon as the garland falls on the floor, elephant is as is. It doesn't matter to an elephant if the garland falls on the floor or it was in the neck. Similarly, a soul who has realized and who is working on the transcendental platform, spiritual activity, which means chanting, associating with devotees, having Krishna Prasadam, doing all sort of spiritual activities, it is in the body, but it's like garland in elephant's neck. It's like that. So that soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, which means, okay, I'm in the body, no problem. Even if I have to leave the body, I will leave the body. It's like that. So it transcend the situation, current situation, living this bodies. That's the meaning here. And then yatha prakash yatye kratisna lok mimam ravi kshetram kshetri tatha kritisan prakashyati bharata. O son of Bharat, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. So as soon as the soul enters into any matter, it becomes conscious. Even the soul will enter into the table will become conscious. It will start dancing. So in the mother's womb, when the soul enters into a matter, immediately consciousness comes into the body. Oh yeah, this is the last shloka of this chapter, and this is the Krishna is telling about Kshetra. Krishna is saying, Kshetra Kshetragya Yore Vantaram Jnana Chakshusha Bhuta Prakrti Moksham Cha Ye Vidur Janti Te Param. Krishna says, those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between body and knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in the material nature, attain to the supreme goal. See why they will attain the supreme goal, because when they will understand this knowledge, then they will understand the value of going back to Godhead. We were discussing this example, I think in previous class or probably another batch. A student, if he is fully aware that I will not get admission into any graduate college if I don't pass my board exam, then what he will do? He will working right somehow or other, so he passed that board exam. Similarly, but if a student is not aware at all that he will have to pass the board exam to get into admission. Then he will be working in whatever way he wants. So similarly, what happens, when someone gets this knowledge that we are discussing in Bhagavad Gita, he understands that, okay, I am soul and there is super soul, and my goal is to understand this super soul, right? They say, oh, I am soul, I'm not the body. Body is just the matter. And there is Krishna residing in everybody's hearts at super soul. Then the soul, what he desires to attain the super soul. He says, okay, I have to go back home, back to Godhead. And because he desires, he starts acting in that, because desires is the key. Desires is the key for super souls to supply all the necessary things to the soul. So you, for example, you desired some time back that I want to read this Bhagavad Gita. Krishna made this arrangement. I desire to teach this knowledge to some of the serious students. Then Krishna made the student. Krishna gave me all of you. So Krishna fulfilled the desires of everyone. So when we get knowledge, the soul gets the knowledge. Okay, there is super soul. I have to act in that super soul interest. And the result is this: liberation. The process of liberation starts. By understanding Bhagavad Gita, the process of liberation is started. And what eventually happens? Attain to the Supreme Lord. This is the last shloka that we discussed in this chapter. So how to acquire Gyan Chakshu? This we see by gaining knowledge about it. And then what is the ultimate destination? Back home, back to Godhead. Okay. I'm sorry, today's chapter was quite technical, I know, but all of you stayed back here. Very thankful. Is there any question or comment on this?
Oh, no question. Did we talk about the survey that we're going to send?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Adaji, for reminding me about that. Let me stop recording and then I'll try.